So first thing that you'll need to do is open up your content browser. So my layout is a bit different than normal layout. So if I click content drawer, I'm going to open the content browser, and you probably don't have these two or three content browsers at the bottom. So I customize it a bit for me, but if you click this content drawer, you can see here the map folder. So open that up and open Smart City level. After that loads, you'll be in the same map as me, so we can start going over some basics. So now that your map is loaded, first you're gonna have to know how to go around in the editor, in the viewport. So if you hold right click, you can kind of look around in your scene, and if you click WSAD, you can basically move around in the scene. You can also click Q and A to basically go up and down, and this way you can basically roam around the whole level. Next thing that you can change in the viewport is basically view modes, basically what you can see. So if we click on the lit at the top left, we can see different view modes that we can change. So we can look at the unlit scene, so this is only the color. We can look at the wireframe, so if we want to see some polygons in our scene, or maybe see through some objects. Next thing we have detail lighting, so this is lighting only without any textures or materials. And next one is yeah, that was lighting only, detail only, and this is lighting only. Now we have reflections, so you can kind of see how your objects reflect in the scene. Player collision, so this is basically what a player can collide with. Visibility collision, and few other that are kind of more for optimization. So if you look at, let's say, shader complexity, we can actually see how complex our materials are in the scene, and Unreal gives you kind of a handy meter for basically how good or bad your materials are. Now, not all green materials are always fine. Maybe you want some more complex materials, so red can also be fine. But basically, this is the viewport where you can kind of optimize your shaders. After that, we have this view mode. So you have like a perspective and orthographic. So if I click top, I can view my scene from the top. In the wireframe mode, of course, I can change it even in here. And perspective is just yeah, your default mode. After that, we have show. Here we can disable and enable objects in the scene or effects in the scene, so we can kind of see or not see some stuff. So if I disable or enable fog, in the distance you can see what it does to the scene. So it disables the fog effect. So we can disable maybe skeletal meshes. Now I'm not sure if we can see any characters in here, but all the characters will be invisible. So there is a bunch of this stuff that you can enable or disable. So there are some post-processing effects, what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Maybe your games have heavy motion blur, and while you're editing, it's kind of hard to see and move around. So maybe disable motion blur would be nice in the editor. This, of course, does not mean it will be disabled in the game. After that, let's try to kind of move objects around in the scene. So let me find an easily editable object. So let's say we want to move this object. By default, you'll be prompted with this move gizmet, which basically shows you three axes, X, Y, and Z. And if I pull on any of the axes, it will pull toward that direction. And we also have this little white dot in the middle, which basically means you will move it in all directions at the same time. Let's do Control Z. And we also have this in between kind of square, where if you click, we move it in two directions in kind of 2D plane. So this is good for, let's say, this object, we only want to move it left or right, not up and down. So we can move it like this and easily position it where you want it. Next thing, if you click space, you can kind of toggle between scale, rotate, and move. But if you click WER, you can also basically change which edit mode you want. So W would be move, E would be rotation, and then RU would be scale. And all of them work similarly. So rotation or scale also has the dot in the middle, meaning you can scale it on all directions, or you can only scale it in 2 axes. The rotation doesn't have that, but it still has the X, Y, and Z directions for rotation. And also you have all 3 of those modes in here, and you can also just be in the select mode if you don't want to see the gizmo. After that, you have this coordinate system. So if you want to use local or global, so global means you will always get the same gizmo. So if I move this up, rotate it a bit, maybe rotate it like this, you can see it's still the same. But if I click into local local coordinate system, you can see how it's tilted. So this Z will always be in the position where the original object was at the Z. So I can rotate it a bit more. Z will be in this direction. So let's click Ctrl Z a few times. Just move it back to the position. So that's the coordinate system, and it can be both of them can be useful, depends on what you want to do. Maybe you have like a slope or something, and you want the object to just you just want to move that object along that slope. It will be kind of awkward to move it like this. But if your object is already positioned going towards the slope, you can just select your local and just move it around. So there are uses for both modes, depends on basically what you want to do. Next thing is that is important is snapping. So you have snapping for rotation, location, and scale. So if you notice when I move, if I even move slowly, you can see this snapping. There is no option in between. That is because the snapping is enabled, and it can be disabled in here. So if I disable it and I move it slowly, you can see how smoothly it moves along the surface. The next thing is the snapping distance, basically. So 50 units, 10 units, 5 units, stuff like that. And that should be self-explanatory. So if I click on 100, it will be 10 times more than we had before. So it's huge snapping. Let's bring back to 10, and you have the same thing for scale and for rotation and scale. Next thing is camera speed. So when you move around, there is certain speed that you're going along, and that is determined by this camera speed. So this city, even small city, is kind of big. There is stuff to go around. So if I want to quickly move at the scene, I can change my camera speed. So let's say 6, and now I'm way faster and can go around way quicker in the scene. So you can use this. You can also just multiply stuff. So I can go just 2x over my speed. I think this is kind of non-linear speed, and then it's just a multiplier. And after that, we have our outliner. So this is kind of the list of all of the actors in the scene. Right now we have a bunch of them because we opened Epic's a huge map with a bunch of stuff, basically the whole city. And your layout might be a bit different. If you don't see any of these tabs, you can easily access them if you go to Window, and in here you can see our outliner. So let's say for some reason it is closed for me, I can go to Window, Outliner, and it pops up here. You can also move them around. So what I did in here is, since if I'm doing some management of the project, I might open multiple content browsers so I can quickly move things around, or open multiple stuff if I'm searching for something, let's say. So how you could do this is basically, let me close everything. So right now we have the normal content browser that you can open with Control Space, and I don't really like this type of content browser because I just like it docked and always accessible. So what I like to do is to go to Window, go to Content Browser, and click Content Browser 1. And this way we have only one open, and let's open another one. And you can see it automatically docks it in here, but let's say I want to move it anywhere else. Unreal lets you just dock it wherever you want. So you can see when we hover over different parts, we can snap it, so we can put one above the other. I like it like this, so we have 2 of them open at the same time. And you can also scale it up and down. All of the windows and tabs are scalable. Okay, so next, after the outliner, we have the details panel. This will show you all of the settings for the object that is currently selected in the scene. So if I click in here, we can see all the details, the location, rotation. So we can see it is a bit offsetted, and the rotation is not a 0 everywhere, so I'm going to select it, click 0. In here we also see the blueprint asset, the levels, all of the details that defines this object basically. There is stuff like, let's see where it's rendering, is it hidden in the game, is it showable? So yeah, you have a bunch of stuff. New thing in Unreal, so if you used Unreal 4 before, you can see it's kind of changed a bit, but basically things are at similar positions. So in here we got one new thing in Unreal 5, that is these filters. So I can quickly go, if I want render, and just click here, or I can click all and see everything. And this layout at the top also changed a bit, but things are generally in the same place. So first we have this select mode. This is useful for when you want to go into different modes of editing. So let's say you want to edit a huge landscape. You would click on this landscape button and go to landscape editing mode. Let's say on that landscape you have a bunch of foliage, so trees, grass, stuff like that. You would click on this if you want to remove or add trees. Then we have like mesh paint, which basically lets us point vertices on the object and then do something with that. So you have a bunch of stuff in here, but we'll mainly be in the select mode. So you can just select object in the scene and manipulate them. After that, you have this create menu, which basically gets you first the content that Unreal provides. So it's quick fill bridge, which is high quality assets that you can bring in your project. Then you have a marketplace where you can download or purchase some assets and then later maybe also use them in a project. Content browser, which basically just lets you open a content browser, and then you have some basic actors that you can place in your scene. So here you will find your lights, your pawn character, stuff like that. You would probably not create it in here, but you have the option to. So if I click in here, we're gonna wait a second. This window opens, and the main thing that interests us here is this level blueprint where we can activate or deactivate things when the game starts. After that we have some cinematics, so you add your sequences in here or level sequences, but we're gonna do it different way than this. Then we have your play game, and you also have some modes on how you want to play. Unreal also lets you play multiplayer games, stuff like that, so you can basically test that out in the editor. Then you have your platforms, which is basically for package. We won't bother with that now. And then you have your settings, which might be important depending on your PC performance. So since I'm recording a video, I set everything to epic instead of cinematic, so I don't get any hiccups, just in case. But if you have some problems with the scene, you can set it to high, medium, low, change some performances in here. You can manually change them. And then you have your material quality levels, which is basically how high of resolution your materials are.